Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Mike, and today I'm taking a look at a topic that every Filipino knows all too well: brownouts, or as some people around the world call them, power outages. But here in the Philippines, brownouts are a part of life. So today I'm talking about the history of brownouts in the Philippines and why they've been so common, and how they've shaped daily life and even the economy. I'll also touch base on my experiences with brownouts here in the Philippines in the almost 10 months since I've been living here. Lastly, I'll get into the subject of the future of brownouts in the Philippines. Will they be here until the rapture, or will they eventually disappear? And if you watch this video all the way to the end, God will bless the Philippines with all the power that it needs, so brownouts will eventually disappear forever. Okay, so let's start with the basics. In many countries, a brownout means a partial or temporary reduction in voltage. The lights may flicker because there is still some power, just not enough to run a vacuum cleaner or that compressor out in your shop. But in the Philippines, a brownout is what us foreigners call a complete power outage or a blackout. The only difference is that in the US, the power gets knocked out because of a strong storm. But in the Philippines, a brownout is just like a blackout in the US, because there's no partial power supplied. The reason why they experience brownouts here in the Philippines is due to there not being enough power. So the local power utilities throughout the Philippines have no choice but to temporarily shut off power for a certain period of time. So when the lights go out here, you'll usually hear people say, brownout, instead of blackout. Okay, so let's get into the history of brownouts in the Philippines. Electric power first came to the Philippines during the American colonial period in the early 1900s. The Manila Electric Company, or Meralco, was founded in 1903. Back then, electricity was limited to Manila and a few urban centers. Outages weren't called brownouts yet, but the lack of infrastructure meant that electricity was unreliable outside of the capital. After World War II, the country needed to rebuild, and electricity demand started growing rapidly. By the 1960s and 70s, industrialization was picking up, and the population was expanding. But the energy infrastructure wasn't keeping up. Power plants were old, underfunded, and the country relied heavily on imported oil, which made electricity expensive and unstable. Now here's where most Filipinos really remember the struggle. During the late 1980s and early 90s, the Philippines went through one of the worst power shortages. Demand was outpacing supply. Hydroelectric plants were running low due to droughts, and the country was looking at ways to meet the demand. By the early 90s, rolling brownouts were a daily reality, sometimes lasting 8 to 12 hours a day in Metro Manila. Imagine trying to run a business or go to school, or even sleep without fans in that kind of heat. It must have been challenging. A power crisis was declared a national emergency in 1992. The government signed emergency contracts with independent power producers, known as IPPs, to build new power plants quickly. This brought some stability back, but also led to controversies over expensive contracts that consumers are still paying for today. Even though the Philippines made progress, brownouts never completely disappeared. Provinces outside of Luzon, especially in the Visayas and Mindanao, still experience regular outages due to old power plants, lack of transmission lines, or even natural disasters damaging the grid. Mindanao, for example, has long relied on hydropower. During El Niño droughts, water levels drop and so does electricity supply, leading to scheduled brownouts. Typhoons hit the country every year, also causing massive blackouts by damaging power lines. Fast forward to today, the Philippines still faces challenges in providing stable, affordable electricity. The country has some of the highest power rates in Asia, and outages still happen. Of course, that's because of low supply, and it doesn't take an economist to figure out that if you can increase the supply, the demand will drop, and so will the prices. The government and private companies are investing in renewable energy like solar, wind, and geothermal, which the Philippines is actually a world leader in. But the road to reliable electricity for everyone is still ongoing. So that's a quick look at the history of brownouts in the Philippines from the early days of electricity to the rolling blackouts of the 1990s to the ongoing challenges the Philippines faces today. Brownouts may be frustrating, but they're also a part of the story of how the Philippines is trying to grow and modernize. Now, here's been my experience with brownouts since I arrived here almost 10 months ago. I've been a witness to about a half a dozen brownouts in that time, and all of them were a surprise. But one time, our apartment manager placed a notice on our door stating that the next morning a brownout was going to happen. It was the only time that we knew a brownout was coming. Well, the next morning rolled around and that brownout never happened. Later that day, I was talking to my Filipino friend and I asked her, why would the one brownout that we knew was coming not happen, and the ones that did happen were a surprise? She answered with,
well, it's the Philippines.
yes, it's the Philippines. So right now, the Philippines still struggles with power outages. Metro Manila doesn't see them as often anymore, but in provinces, especially in the Visayas and Mindanao, scheduled brownouts can still happen. The reasons? Old infrastructure, high demand, natural disasters, and the dependence on imported fuel. Add in typhoons and El Niño and you get a recipe for unreliable electricity. Here's the thing. The Philippines' population is still growing, and so is the economy. More malls, more factories, more subdivisions. By the year 2040, the Department of Energy predicts the electricity demand could more than double. So if we don't upgrade fast enough, the brownouts of the past might come back even stronger. That's only something that could happen, because it doesn't mean that it will happen. How many movies have we seen that dealt with future events that just got it plain wrong? When the Doc and Marty traveled from the year 1985 to the year 2015, they witnessed kids wearing their pockets inside out, and flying cars were everywhere. Well, 10 years ago, I never saw kids wearing their pockets inside out, and now it's the year 2025, and most cars are still glued to the pavement. But enough with that analogy. The Philippines is one of the most resource-rich countries in Asia when it comes to renewable energy. They've got solar, wind, hydro, and even geothermal. In fact, the Philippines is the second largest producer of geothermal energy in the world. If the Philippines continues to invest in renewables, we could see the country reduce its dependence on imported coal and oil, which means cheaper and more stable power in the long run. This won't be an easy task. There isn't just any one simple answer. Building new power plants, upgrading transmission lines, and modernizing the grid takes time and money. And there are those unforeseeable situations that always seem to come up that could slow things down. There's also the issue of balancing renewable energy with reliable supply. For example, solar only works when the sun is out, and hydropower drops when there's a drought. That's why backup systems and energy storage are so important for the future. So what does the future look like? Short term, the next 5 years, we'll still see occasional brownouts, especially during typhoon season or extreme heat waves. Medium term, 5 to 15 years, if renewable projects and grid upgrades move forward, we should see fewer and shorter outages. Long term, 15 plus years, if the Philippines fully commits to renewable energy and smarter infrastructure, brownouts could become rare or maybe even eradicated altogether. So will the Philippines ever be completely free from brownouts? The potential is there. They've got the resources, the technology, and the talent. But whether or not brownouts become a thing of the past will depend on the decisions made today. What do you think? Will the Philippines finally say goodbye to brownouts, or are they here to stay? Share your thoughts in the comments because I want to hear your take on this. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content about life and brownouts in the Philippines. Bell notification? Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.